In the week since the British general election, working people would be forgiven for being in mourning, because after all we're lumbered with a Prime Minister who is a chancer, a complete liar and unreliable. We cannot, after all, rely on a word he says, because I don't think he believes it himself. He's the same man, Boris Johnson, who famously wrote two different columns for the Telegraph newspaper. One was arguing the case for Brexit and the other was arguing the case against Brexit. And he weighed up his options and his best career chances before deciding which one to submit for publication. That's the kind of unreliable chancer that he is. He's also a man with utter contempt for working class people. For example, he infamously wrote in the right-wing newspaper The Spectator, after the terrible tragedy at Hillsborough with 96 football fans dying, that the people of Liverpool had a history of wallowing in self-pity. That's the kind of cruel, callous, calculating reprobate that he is. So it's understandable if people are in mourning. But I think we should apply the famous words of the American Swedish socialist Joe Hill. He was facing the firing squad in 1915 after being framed on a murder trial because of his trade union and socialist activities. And he famously sent a telegram to one of his comrades, Bill Haywood, saying, "Goodbye, Bill, I die as a true blue rebel. Don't waste time on mourning, organise," which is usually abbreviated to "Don't mourn, organise." That, I think, has to be the attitude of the trade union movement in response to Boris Johnson's election, specifically in Scotland, because the Tories have no democratic mandate whatsoever to rule and ruin Scotland. And my heartfelt appeal is to ordinary trade unionists, to trade union branches, to trade union leaders, and specifically to the Scottish TUC, to organise a demonstration in the early part of 2020 to oppose all the assaults on working class people's rights and conditions and livelihood that loom under the Prime Ministership of Boris Johnson. A demonstration which could unite people around the issues that affect all of us, regardless of how we voted on Remain and Leave in the European Union. For instance, a demonstration in solidarity with those workers already in struggle, such as the university workers fighting against attacks on their pensions, attacks in the form of rampant casualisation and rising mental health illnesses. In solidarity with the postal workers who are in struggle against the hiving off of parcel force, the loss of 20,000 jobs minimum, and attacks on their conditions to turn into a two-tier workforce. And solidarity with various members of the railway unions, the RMT in particular, fighting against attacks on safety for the travelling public. So a rally in support of those who already fight back against their employers and against the government. But also a demonstration in defence of the basic human right to withdraw your labour, the right to strike, because that's under attack from this Tory government already, within a week of it being put into office. We see the way in which the courts were wheeled out to ban pre-Christmas strikes by the Royal Mail staff after the mass democracy of a 97.1% majority in favour of strike action in defence of their jobs and defence of the public service they provide. We also now see that Boris Johnson is hell-bent on banning the right to strike, for all-out strike at least, on the railways. And if they get away with that on the railways, they'll get away with it in other sectors later on. So we need to defend that basic human right, the right to withdraw our labour as workers. We should also have a demonstration that makes it clear that in Scotland's case, in particular, we're not prepared to allow the Tories to get away with whipping up a hostile environment and to whip up division between Indigenous Scottish workers and migrant workers from other nations, whilst they rob us of wages and of conditions and of services. We need to unite to defend jobs, to defend wage levels, and to defend decent public services for all, migrants and immigrants included. And of course, in the situation where the Tories have no mandate to rule and ruin Scotland, I think the STUC should organise a demonstration that includes also the right of the Scottish people to choose their own future, rather than having it imposed by Boris Johnson and his cabal of Tories that the Scottish people never elected. It's a fact that a majority of Scottish voters have never supported the Tories since the year 1955. So why should we allow them to ride roughshod over us, our rights, our livelihoods, our conditions? So to conclude, I would appeal to trade unionists, to trade union branches, to shop stewards, to trade union leaders and to the Scottish TUC to pull together and to organise urgently a national demonstration in Scotland on those kinds of issues to unite us against the Tories who have no mandate in Scotland. Unite, fight back against them, don't mourn, organise.